Welcome back to my Sunshine Fam to another Presidential Highlights video. My name is Chloe. If you're new, thank you for joining me today. Please hit that subscribe button below if you haven't done so already, and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload a new video. Like, comment, please. Share these videos with anybody you think might be interested in them. And so today we're going to be talking about our 38th president, who is Gerald Ford. But before that, I need to kind of go back a few presidents and show you some newspaper clippings that I didn't have when I recorded some of these older videos, or I forgot to get them out, which I have now. So going back to Kennedy, JFK, I have a newspaper clipping from when he died. So this was in 1963. That shows his two kids, Caroline and John Jr., at his funeral. And of course, at the assassination of Kennedy, Johnson was vice president, which means when a president is assassinated during his term in office, the vice president and everybody below him gets bumped up to the next level. So Johnson became president. So this is the picture of, or the newspaper article, these are actual papers now, of Johnson becoming president after Kennedy was assassinated. And then in 1968, JFK's brother Robert Kennedy, or Bobby Kennedy, was campaigning at a hotel. I think he was trying to become president, and he was shot and killed. So here is a picture of Robert Kennedy right after he was shot, which was very unusual for the time to print a picture like that. So now we go to the last presidential highlight video I did, which was Nixon. And if you remember, he had to resign because of the Watergate scandal. So here's the actual paper of front page showing the president resigned and that Ford was going to be taking office. So let's jump into this. So our 38th president was Gerald Ford. He served from 1974 to 1977. His vice president was Nelson Rockafeller. And this is the paper showing that he was to become president after Nixon's resignation. So we're going to start this out a little bit backing up a little bit, and here's a color picture of Ford here. So we're going to start out backing up a little bit because that's where this started from. So in 1973, on October 10th, if you remember, Vice President Spiro Agnew resigned under Nixon. He pled no contest to tax evasion. The very next day, Gerald Ford accepts the vice presidency. And December 6th, Ford was sworn in as the vice president, and he was sworn in the House chamber. In his address, he states, "I'm a Ford, not a Lincoln." Now, that's kind of a play on words with the presidents and also makes of cars. I don't know if they make Lincolns anymore, for those of you that are younger, but there used to be a car called a Lincoln. The same day, Nixon resigned, well, not the same day, but on the same date on this website, it said Nixon resigned on August 8th, 1974, and that was after the Watergate and phone taps. So let's jump into 1974. August 9th, Gerald R. Ford was inaugurated as our 38th president. August 12th, Ford addresses inflation to the joint session of Congress. August 19th, Ford picks Rockafeller as his vice president. That would be Nelson A. Rockafeller, who was a former governor of New York, and yes, Rockefeller Center is named after that gentleman. August 28th, the pardon possibility. In his first president, Ford was questioned on pardoning Richard Nixon, and he said, "I'm not ruling it out." September 8th, Ford does pardon Nixon. His ratings fall to 49% after the full pardon. He felt it was proper to avoid a trial and felt Nixon had suffered enough embarrassment. September 16th, clemency for draft evaders. So that is where evaders and military deserters can return to society by doing other types of jobs. September 28th, Betty Ford battles breast cancer. She was the first lady, and she got a mastectomy, I think it is. September 30th, the Economic Policy Board was formed, and it oversees all of the economic policy. October 8th, tax hike and spending cuts. There was a temporary 5% tax hike and cut federal spending. It creates voluntary inflation fighting organization, and Ford calls it the Whip Inflation Now, or WIN. October 15th, Federal Elections Campaign Act, most significant reform since the 1920s. So you have to go back to those early presidential highlights to read about that, because I'm not going back to my notes to find that. November 5th, the Democrats gained the seats. They had gained 43 seats in the House and 3 in the Senate, and they also gained 4 governors. Didn't say which ones. November 11th, WIN campaign was announced. November 17th, Ford's first visit to Japan. He was the first president to ever visit Japan, and especially after World War II. November 21st, Freedom of Information Act was passed by the Congress because Ford vetoed it, but the Congress felt it was necessary. It provides access to government files and allows secret classified papers to be challenged in court. Kind of reminds you of what's going on in the news today with another former president of ours, recent president of ours. December 19th, Rockafeller was confirmed. The vote was 287 to 128 to make him the vice presidency, or the vice president. The same day, the Privacy Act of 1974 ensures Americans' individual privacy right. Jump into 1975. January 4th, the Commission to Review CIA Abuses. It was known as the Rockafeller Commission. Some of you that are about my age might remember some of these things. I don't remember a lot of them. It includes opening mail and domestic surveillance. So that's when they started keeping tabs on all of us. January 13th, Ford proposes a tax cut. $16 billion was proposed. March 11th, integration was higher in the South. Civil Rights Commission stated there's more blacks in white schools than in the North. And I don't mean to offend anybody by saying those words. So it's just the way it was written out. March 27th, Saigon falls and America withdraws. The cities of Ban Mi Tao and Da Nang fall before Saigon to North Vietnam. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these Southeast Asian names. March 29th, the Tax Reduction Act of 1975. It calls for a $22.8 billion cut. The same day, unemployment rises to 8.7%. That was the highest it had ever been since 1941. April 11th, Cambodia falls to Khmer Rouge, Khmer-Rouge, who was a communist. Or maybe the country was communist. I think that it was the country was communist. May 12th, Mayaguez seized. Mayaguez was seized. Cambodia seizes a U.S. merchant ship in the Gulf of Siam. It takes the crew hostage. May 14th, airstrikes on Cambodia. Marines move on Koh Tong. I think that's how you pronounce it. 15 Marines were killed. Sailors were not found. After the airstrikes, the crew were released. May 27th, Ford addresses energy policy. Unemployment was at its high point of 9.2%. I don't know what it is today, but I can certainly look that up. If you want to know, comment below. Let me know. And I'll put it in my next presidential highlights video. June 19th, Ford committee established. It's to run his 1976 nomination. July 8th, Ford announces candidacy. July 26th, Ford leaves for Europe. It was his second trip, and he signs the Helsinki Accord. August 10th, Betty Ford was on 60 Minutes. She speaks about extramarital affairs, marijuana, and admits to favoring making abortion legal. Isn't it funny how all the news today seems to have taken place during Ford's time? I find that very interesting. September 4th, Egypt and Israel sign an agreement. It was the second stage of the Sinai withdrawal. September 5th, an attempted assassination of Ford, Lynette Squeaky Fromm, in South San Francisco, and I think it was when Ford was campaigning. October 29th, Ford refuses aid to New York City. Now remember this, because in a couple more dates I'll tell you why. He advises the city to use financial restraint. The New York Daily News headline said, "Ford to city, drop dead." November 2nd, which I don't have that newspaper. November 2nd, the Sunday Morning Massacre, or as some people pronounce it, massacre. Henry Kissinger leaves position as the National Security Advisor, but he stays on as the post of Secretary of State. William Colby was fired as Director of Central Intelligence. James Schlesinger was fired as Secretary of Defense. So a lot of people lost their jobs that day. Well, 3 anyway. 3? Yeah, 3. November 4th, Rockafeller withdraws at no vice president candidacy in 1976. November 20th, Reagan challenges Ford. He will run as the Republican president. Now, for those of you that might be a little bit younger, and I'll probably address this in Reagan's presidential highlights, but he was actually an actor in the 1950s, which I think I do talk about that a little later on, because that's when my camera was about to shut off. November 27th, Ford loans to New York City. See what I mean? Not even 2 months later. New York tax increase. Banks and teachers unions agree, preventing New York City from falling into default. Ford requests $2.3 billion in loans. December 22nd, Energy Policy Conservation Act. Ford signs that. 1976 was a very big year. I do remember what happened in July. January 19th, Ford gives his State of the Union address. January 30th, the Federal Election Campaign Act, Supreme Court rules determination campaign spending limits violate the First Amendment. February 7th, unemployment drops from 8.3% in December to 7.8% in January. Quite a drop. February 17th, Ford reorganizes intelligence. February 24th, Ford beats Reagan in New Hampshire. He wins by 51% of the vote. March 1st, parsing language. Ford won't use détente regarding the USSR and U.S. relations over pressure from Reagan and the Republicans. Now, keep in mind, this is back in the mid-70s, and Russia didn't exist. It was still considered the United Soviet Socialist Republic, so they were still they were still communist, so they were still considered the USSR. March 24th, Concorde makes its first flight. It was a supersonic jet between Europe and U.S. No matter how much digging I did, I couldn't find on that particular date how long the flight took from Europe to the U.S., so I can't report on that. I dug a lot. So if you happen to know, please comment that below so the rest of us can know. April 16th, building up oil reserves to protect the U.S. from another foreign embargo. Maybe they should have done that again. Although gas prices are coming down. It's $3.79 now in the Twin Cities. April 20th, the GNP rises, which stands for Gross National Product. It rises to 7.5%. Inflation was at 3.7%. I'll have to try and do some digging on how much inflation is now. Quite high, because I bought a gallon of milk today at $6.50. That was crazy. May 14th, Congress to set reform timetable for extensive reform of government, regulatory program, and agencies. May 18th, Ford approves congressional election revisions, permits the Fed to check off subsidies for every presidential campaign. May 28th, limiting Soviet Union testing. Ford signs a treaty for underground testing. June 20th, Ford evacuates Americans from Lebanon. 116 Americans and 146 third country nationals, can't read, evacuated after ambassador and aide murdered. They didn't say what the person's name was, so I can't report on that. July 4th was a big day because it was the 200th birthday of our country, It was the bicentennial, and Ford talks at Valley Forge and Independence Hall. Now, I think if you look on the back of a $100 bill, if you happen to have one, I believe it's either the 100 or the 50 on the back. It shows a picture of Independence Hall, so you can kind of see what that looks like. July 15th, Democrats nominate Jimmy Carter. He was the governor of Georgia. July 21st, Viking 1 lands on Mars, and it becomes the first spacecraft to do so. I wonder if that's the same one that is on Mars now taking pictures. Leave your comment below and let me know. I didn't look at that. The inflation rate also drops that day. In 1974, the inflation was at 12.2%, and in 76, it was at 4.6%. Wait a minute, didn't I say it was at 3 something? April 20th, inflation was at 3.7%. Interesting. And then it went back up to 4.6%. Okay, well, it was still pretty low. August 6th, employment rises. It was up by 3.8 million since March of 1976. Same year. August 19th, Ford beats Reagan for the nominations. Reagan was a former actor, as I said, and the governor of California. Ford had 1,187 votes. Reagan had 1,070 votes. Ford selects Robert Dole of Kansas as his vice president. August 25th, Baker becomes campaign manager. That would be James A. Baker. And if I remember right, I think he was the one that also served under Reagan. We'll have to look at that when we get to Reagan's presidency. Same day, Mao Zedong dies. He was a communist leader of China. He was also known as Chairman Mao. September 13th, Ford makes the 56th veto. It's called the Sunshine Law, government funding prototype electric automobile engine. And yet, here we are today with a lot of electric cars. And that started in 1976. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? September 26th, the first Ford-Carter debate. It was held in Philly's Walnut Theater, Philadelphia. It centers on domestic policy. October 6th, Carter wins the second debate held in San Francisco. Ford messed up saying there's no Soviet domination in Eastern Europe. We all know that wasn't true. October 12th, Ford hit with eggs. Antagonistic crowd in New York City pelted Ford with eggs during his campaign. So maybe I got that mixed up with the assassination attempt. October 21st, Carter and Ford gap at 6%. October 22nd, the third presidential debate held at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. November 2nd, Carter wins the presidency. 49.9% of the popular vote went to Carter, while 47.9% went to Ford. November 7th, peace in Lebanon. After 50 ceasefires and 35,000 deaths, there was finally peace in Lebanon. November 13th, congressional gift scandal. 90 members implicated for accepting illegal gifts from agent of South Korea government. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. My camera shut off and I didn't realize it. And then I was recording the end of it and I realized after I thought I recorded it that my camera had shut off and I hadn't hit the record button. So let's continue on, shall we? So I just recorded about November 13th, the congressional gift scandal. So December 15th, again 1976, stocking up on oil. The admin plans to store 500 million barrels of crude oil in the salt dunes on the Gulf Coast. Wonder if they're still doing that. That would be nice. Although gas prices are coming down. I saw it at $3.79 the other day, yesterday. Here in the Twin Cities. I don't know what it's like in your state, so put your comments below. December 31st, Puerto Rican statehood proposal. Ford wants Puerto Rico to be the 51st state. Critics say it violates the principle of self-determination. Funny how that we're still talking about that today. Lin-Manuel Miranda would be very proud of that. Inflation holds steady the same day, 4.8%, best in 4 years. Employment is still high, however. January 20th of 1977, Ford leaves Washington, D.C., and Jimmy Carter is sworn in. So, I would like you all to come back for the next presidential highlight video, president number 39, which is Jimmy Carter. I do remember a lot of things that happened during his presidency, but I won't give it away. You'll have to come back and watch it. I want to thank you all for joining me for 38 presidents. Now, if you were to ask me who I believe from Washington all the way to Ford, who, with all these notes that I've been taking, who I think was the very best president that we've ever had, a lot of you would say Lincoln because he abolished slavery, which was a very good thing, but I would have to say my top pick for president would have to be FDR. Because yes, World War II did happen during his entire presidency. He was the only president that we had for more than 2 terms. He served 12 years in office, which was 4 terms, but he didn't quite finish out the 4th term because he died during the 4th term of office. What Hoover did to screw up this country in 4 years, putting us into deep depression, FDR was able to turn that around in 9 days, and I thought that was very impressive. He was reopening thousands of banks within the first 9 days of his presidency. He turned unemployment around. He got the country back working. He just did so many great things for this country. And so that's just my opinion. You obviously have yours. So if you could do me a favor and make your comment below and tell me if you've been watching these all along. And if you haven't, please go back and watch them. Maybe pick your favorite president and see what happened during his term in office. But I've been doing these since Washington, and that was over a year ago. Don't even remember when I did the first one. But in any case, put your comment below and tell me who you think our best president was up until Ford. Don't go from Carter forward, but in this video, I'll probably ask you again once I get done with Trump. Because, of course, Biden is president right now. But up to this point, from Washington all the way to Ford, who do you think was our best president? And then give me your reasons why you think that president was our best president. I'd be interested to find out your thoughts and opinions on who you thought our best presidents were. So, in any case, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you for joining me today on this beautiful day. And we will be seeing you on the next one. You have a sunny day. Peace out.